Hey guys, how's it going today? Thank you for tuning in to On and Off the Road again. Had an opportunity to come out on another motorcycle ride, and I'm on a 2020 Kawasaki Vulcan Voyager today, 1700 V twin, a really nice touring cruiser bike. Got to go out here in the northern Black Hills and just take in some of the scenery. And I just want to start out by thanking Sturgis Motorsports for letting me bring the bike out. And this bike is actually really smooth to ride. Riding it 2-up with my daughter today, and it's got cruise, radio. It's a 20. It doesn't have necessarily all the tech you'd get in something like a BMW or maybe even a Harley or an Indian, but it's also not as expensive. It's a 6-speed, which is kind of the way Kawasaki labels at a 5-speed with an overdrive, but you're 65 cruising at about 2,500 RPM in overdrive, and it just hums right along. This one actually has an aftermarket exhaust on it, and when I get to starting it up, you'll hear it sounds really good. I think it's a Cobra, I want to say. It's got a C on it, and if somebody knows that for a fact once we get there, comment on below if I have that wrong. But it does have that typical chrome engine, chrome exhaust, but it's got that classic styling. And without further ado, I'm going to get into it and you can see it for yourself. Kawasaki Vulcan Voyager 1700 V twin. This is a 2020 model, and you can see it's got that classic chrome look with it. You got that styling that is kind of mimicking the Harley market, the Indian market for that age. This one looks a little bit more classic to me. It does have a fixed fairing, so it is sort of like the Road Glide or the Challenger in that respect. And this one is liquid cooled. It does have a radiator up front. I heard the fan kick on a little bit when we were going low speeds. And it's a nice riding bike. It has a Kawasaki active suspension, as they call it. And you can see it's labeled there on the front fender with ABS. Dual calipers on the front. You have lowers, so you get wind protection on the legs as well. Has really responsive brakes, and I don't know if it's just the brake pads that have been put on this, but the brakes work really well. Very responsive, and give you a close-up on that exhaust C that I was mentioning, and I don't know if that's, I think that's Cobra, but if it's not, if it's something else, let me know. But when I start it up here, you'll hear it sounds pretty good. Kind of a deep, throaty sound. Not quite as much pop as, say, a Harley or an Indian, but especially a Harley. This one, you can see it has added highway bars on it, front and rear. You can see them there in front of the rear saddlebags, as well as floorboards front and rear, which is kind of a nice thing instead of having to add those. And then the front engine guards or crash guards does have heel toe shift ability. I'm not a huge fan of heel toe. I just tend to use my toe, and there's enough room for my boot. But this thing, it runs really nice. It does have a stereo. It's nothing to write home about, but it runs nice, classic. You got all the gauges. You've got the huge Kawasaki there on the dash, and that's actually the radio. And I turned it on. Speakers are okay. It's not bad. I'm sure there's room for upgrade, but you do have all the radio controls here at your fingertips if you need them. Lights, horn. Then over here you've got your cruise and your different mode selections, which actually reset your trip or your trip meter and that sort of thing. But I'm going to fire this thing up and you can hear it for yourself. One thing to keep in mind, for some reason Kawasaki does on accessory off, and it's habit, at least in a lot of worlds, to just go into accessory and then you walk off thinking the bike is turned off. And it actually isn't. That's a prime way to run your battery dead. You actually have to turn it to off, and then it actually turns off. Then you can actually turn the handlebars and lock it, just like you would typically as well, turning it that way. But let's fire this thing up and you can hear it. engine running. And I want to give you a sound. You can hear that throaty rumble. Sounds really good. That is the 2020 Kawasaki Vulcan Voyager V-Twin 1700. I do want to thank you for watching. Have a blessed day, and I want to leave you. Here is sunset in St. Ange, South Dakota. This is right downtown.